In this video, I'm going to tell you how Silent Hill 2 changed the mythology of the whole series. So, I recommend to you that if you haven't played Silent Hill 2 by now, go do it. Because in this video, I'm going to be telling you a lot. By we, I mean this guy. Out of all the games that I've played in my life, the Silent Hill series consists of the most interesting and mysterious of games. Except for maybe the game Myst. The Silent Hill series has a very distinct mythology to it, but outside of each game's plot, that mythology is generally kept vague, and how Silent Hill reflects a character's unconscious mind is never really explained in detail. However, it wasn't always like this. The idea that Silent Hill manifests physically the inner workings of a person's being wasn't actually introduced until Silent Hill 2. In Silent Hill on PS1, this revelation is never actually revealed, and Silent Hill 1 actually leaves the player with the idea that the monsters and the world in the games were brought about through the powers of the demon incubating inside Alessa, and that the shifting from the fog world to the other world is simply Alessa's pain and suffering warping reality through the power of the demon inside her. If you'd like to learn more about the first game, just check out my video review and documentary, which you can link to here, or is it over here? It's going to be on the screen somewhere. Although reality was being warped by Alessa's pain and suffering, it actually was warped through the powers of the town Silent Hill itself, as opposed to the powers of the demon. And this is Silent Hill 2's contribution to the series. It's a reworking of the mythology and history of the town, which the game Silent Hill 2 does to great extent. In the game, the town of Silent Hill is actually located on sacred grounds. The Native Americans used to refer to the place as the Place of Silent Spirits, and stated that the area around the lake had special powers. However, this power was corrupted when the first settlers arrived, specifically the cult of Silent Hill. In Silent Hill 2, we only learn about this during a second playthrough of the game, when James finds the book called The Book of Lost Memories, which gives a quick little history of the grounds that the town sits on. The book, however, doesn't state exactly what the powers of the land are, but much of the game hints that those powers are what physically warps reality and manifests creatures and symbols based upon the psyche of the people in it. Basically, Silent Hill is a giant Jungian psychology machine. Put a character's repressed emotions, desires, and unconscious mind into it, and on the other side, you get your own personal Silent Hill. However, much of this power was corrupted by the cult's influence through the centuries, and sometimes their symbols and iconography are used to symbolize or represent something within a character's unconscious mind. In Silent Hill 2's case, one of the cult's religious figures, which is referred to in Silent Hill 2 as Pyramid Head, represents James's desire to be punished for killing his wife. The idea that Silent Hill's power subjectively projects reality is hinted at throughout the game. In the beginning of the game, James finds a series of papers written by a nearby corpse when that corpse wasn't a corpse, presumably. It's a short account of two people in the fog of Silent Hill. One sees monsters, the other does not. The subjective nature of Silent Hill can also be extrapolated from a comparison between James's other world and the other worlds of Alessa, Eddie, Angela, and Laura. Alessa herself doesn't appear in Silent Hill 2, but in Silent Hill 1, the other world Harry enters represents Alessa's pain and suffering. Everything is rusty and covered in blood and is rotting, and the walls are decorated with corpses. Hospital equipment like wheelchairs and gurneys are laying about. Bloody chains hang from the ceiling. It's as if the Cenobites decorated the place. When I think of Silent Hill on PS1, I think of the color orangish red. This is in stark contrast to Silent Hill 2. James's other world is more green in color, and instead of chains and chain link fences everywhere and corpses decorating everything, the environment has a more generally dilapidated feel to it. There's lots of water and rain in James's Silent Hill, as that is a large symbol for his character. There is also the themes of guilt, imprisonment, and punishment, which are physically manifested in James's projection of the town, from prison cells to handcuffs to the hanged man puzzle. In Silent Hill 2, you do also get to see the projected worlds of other characters. The first time you get to see Angela's other world is in the nowhere stage of the game. James enters a room with everyday furniture in it. However, the walls are made of flesh and there are metal pistons pumping in and out. In this room, James finds Angela being attacked by a monster that looks like two people fornicating on a coffee table. This This room and the creature represent the sexual abuse that Angela suffered at the hands of her father. This room and the creature are a contrast to what James experiences in terms of monsters and environment. There is no other room like this in the game. It is purely a manifestation of Angela. Later in the game, James encounters Angela in the stairwell of the hotel. The stairwell is on fire, and the two act as if it isn't. After a brief bit of dialogue, Angela begins to ascend the stairs. James mentions how hot it is in there, and Angela states that James can also see the fire. She then states that it's always like that for her, alluding to her otherworldly Silent Hill always being ablaze. In addition to Angela's otherworld, the audience also gets to experience Eddie's projection of Silent Hill as well. Now, I might be completely wrong about Eddie's otherworld in Silent Hill 2. There's never been anything officially stated by Team Silent about it, and I've never heard anyone else talk about it before. But I do believe that we as the audience get to experience his otherworld. At the end of the Nowhere stage of Silent Hill 2, James encounters Eddie in a room filled with corpses and many vents and tubes pumping in fog or mist or just generally cold air into the room. The room itself is very blue and cold feeling. I think that this and the meat locker the Eddie boss fight takes place in are part of Eddie's other world. I think the cold air being pumped into the room is a symbol for Eddie, just as fire is a symbol for Angela, representing her anger, and water is a symbol for James, representing his sadness. Lastly, there's Laura. I don't think she herself has an otherworld, but during the game she does question what James means when he says monsters, indicating that she perhaps doesn't see what James sees, which would make sense. Laura is a child and probably doesn't have the same level of mental baggage James has. Additionally, when James exits the bowling alley, Maria says she chased after Laura, which is highly strange as Laura is looking for Mary in Silent Hill and Maria looks exactly like Mary. So why doesn't Laura stop to talk to Maria? Because Maria exists in Silent Hill only to James and James alone. And this is how Silent Hill 2 changed the mythology behind the games. It took the idea of a shifting reality dependent upon a demon and a suffering little girl and made it a town with the power to take a person's psychology and project it into a physical world and beings unique entirely to it and the people therein. It's an incredibly unique idea for a video game and is one of the standout characteristics of Silent Hill 2.
So if you want a game that is infinitely fun to interpret, then I cannot recommend Silent Hill 2 more. It is an absolutely fantastic game. If you've enjoyed this video, please check out my video on Contra for the PS2, or you can check out my video on Stallone-based games. Rambo's cool. You know, he saved the 3 little pigs once.